Hi there, I'm Cask Theology, and in every mythological pantheon, there's a few kind of gods that seem to crop up quite a lot. You know, you've got your thunder gods, you've got your trickster gods, and there's always that emo god that sits in the corner and gets picked on, and then he'll plot his revenge that usually involves the end of the cosmos. And then you've got the fun gods, the ones that everyone likes, the ones that like to party. And where there's parties, there's usually booze, and if you've got drinks, then there's usually a god of it. Hi there, as I mentioned, I am Cask Theology, and the Mythology guy has kindly invited me onto his channel to do a channel swap collab to talk about a few gods of beer. So, I did a bit of research, and here are some of the coolest ones that you can raise your glasses to. So, first up, we have the oldest one found by archaeologists, and she has the honour of having the oldest recorded recipe for brewing beer that's been found in written form. This is the goddess Ninkasi. Ninkasi was a goddess of Sumeria. You know, that Sumeria. And it's also the place where Gilgamesh lived, from the epic of the same name. Her origin story is as you'd expect, and it's super demonetizable, but the short version is that her father Enki was a bit like Zeus, and he liked the ladies. So he tried to woo a goddess who, in classic mythology style, was also a spider, and she went to consult with his wife, and as you'd expect, things go downhill from there. His wife tricks him into eating some kind of fruit that he shouldn't have because of reasons that will get this channel blacklisted, and this gets him pregnant in strange places, like his face and his ribs and his limbs, because he's a guy and he can't give birth. This action nearly kills him, and all the other gods freak out, but thanks to Enki's wife's pet fox, she gets convinced to take his affliction, and because she can actually give birth, she does give birth to several gods, one of which was Ninkasi. I suppose it's kind of like a divine seahorse thing, I guess. Ninkasi was the goddess of alcohol and brewing, and she was always cooking up some Sumerian beer. Now, it wasn't like the stuff that we have nowadays, mind you. It was brewed using bread, and it was more like a gruel than a proper drink, but it was alcoholic, and it had to be drunk with a straw. It was kind of like a weird cocktail, beer, soup, mashup thing. So, from the Sumerians to the Aztecs, so from the Middle East to America, and the Aztecs decided that one beer-soaked god wasn't good enough for them, so they had these guys, which is a name I'm not even going to try and pronounce because I am English and I will probably call down some sort of ancient curse on myself. Now, these guys were also known colloquially as the 400 Drunken Rabbits. Now, as the name suggests, they were up for a party, and they'd meet up often to, well, you know, get drunk. It's not hard to see why they were keen on intoxicating substances either, because their dad was the Aztec god of smoking peyote, and their mother was the goddess of the plant their beer was actually made from, so, like, parents like sons, I guess? Their origin story is also, it's not family-friendly content. But their creation myth actually explains why young men in Aztec society weren't allowed to drink beer, on pain of actual legal execution. Now, the gist of the story is that the drink was given to a young king, and this young king did some very naughty things while he was completely smashed out of his head drunk. So it was then decreed that it could only be consumed by older men who knew how to control themselves, which, in hindsight, is kind of a wise move considering what I've seen drunken young lads do over the years when I've been working in pubs. Now, the beer they drank was made from agave plants, and you can still get it today. The Aztecs had got lots of gods, and I mean lots of gods, so many it puts the Greeks and the Romans to shame, and a fair few of these guys were associated with excess and extremes, but mostly the dangers of these excesses and extremes. I'll now go through a couple of the most famous of these 400 rabbits, so let's do that. Weirdly enough, there wasn't a one rabbit, but there was a two rabbit, and two rabbit was a god of drunkenness and fertility. So make up your own conclusions with that, or follow some of the links provided. Next up, we've got five rabbit. Now, five rabbit was especially known for drunkenness, and I mean, that's quite a task given that your competition is about 400 strong. I bet he was into imperial stouts or something, but yet, he was the god of getting completely wasted. What makes him even more interesting is that 400 in Aztec numerology was a representation of infinity, So this guy must have been so wasted. The last Aztec god I want to talk about is this guy, who is... And he was the dancing squirrel god, the patron deity of your uncle who gets smashed at weddings and believes that he's giving his interpretation of crushing it on the dance floor. So, finally, from the heat of the Aztecs to the cold of Finland and Estonia, where we've got a really interesting god, not because he's got like a cool story associated with him, but because he's actually a really good example of one religion getting absorbed into another. Our last god of beer is called Peko, who was, as I mentioned, an Estonian and Finnish god, and he was a god of crops, most notably barley and all the things that come from it, such as beer. He's still revered today by the Sito people, and his cult was actually still around in the 20th century, but it has to be said that nowadays he's seen more of a heroic figure than a deity. But it's interesting that this bit of culture that people just couldn't bear to let go is still around, even when the new religion in town rolled in. So when Christianity turned up, they just adapted him to fit into it. And this happens actually quite a bit. Interestingly, the only records we've got of Peko come from a Christian bishop, and all of his rituals and holy days are actually Christian ones. So one of them is at Pentecost, where there's a ritual where young men would meet up and duel each other until first blood was drawn, and they would chant to Peko saying, "Come and share a beer with us, come and share a beer with us, come and share a beer with us." Idols of him were often hid in granaries so he could watch over the crops, and candles would be placed in a slot in the idol's head, which fits into the other rituals that were associated with him, such as Candlemas and harvest festivals, which, fit in naturally. So I'm going to be honest, guys, I really wanted to look more into this god because he seemed really interesting, but unfortunately all the resources were in Finnish and Estonian, and I can't read either. So I had to go with what I could find on Wikipedia and all that good stuff. However, I did find one more interesting thing relating to Peko, and that is that there is a type of hop that has been named after this god, Peko. And guess where it's from? That's right, it's from Finland. So even today, the god Peko is still involved in brewing beer, even in namesake only. And so there you have it, guys and gals. Those have been some gods of beer. Now, if you're wondering what's happened to Mythology Guy, he's currently over on my channel explaining what the heck happened to the Apostle Thomas after the events of the Bible. So, if you think that's really interesting, why not head over to my channel and take a look. I talk about all things theology and beer. But if you want to keep it strictly mythological, well, why not check out some of Mythology Guy's other stuff? And if you like it, drop a like and subscribe for more interesting tales from around the world. I have been Cask Theology. Many thanks to Mythology Guy for having me on his channel. Thank you guys for watching, and until we meet again, go grab a drink and keep asking questions.